They told me it was stable, just aftershocks, just routine. Go in, sweep for survivors, tag any visible bodies. That's all. I've been on 30 rescue ops in worse conditions than this. Earthquakes in Sumatra, landslides in the north. I've pulled kids out of schools with 2 fingers and a prayer. I've dragged survivors through floodwater up to my chest with nails and broken glass floating around me like confetti. But this one broke the rules because I was the one screaming for help this time, and nobody answered. I remember the moment the second tremor hit. It wasn't like in the movies. No thunder, no dramatic shaking, just a shift. The kind of shift your body isn't supposed to feel, like gravity blinked. We were inside what was left of Tower B, 12 stories of steel and concrete reduced to a half-eaten sandwich. First quake hit 2 hours before we arrived. No fires, no floods, just silent devastation. It was still standing, technically. Half of it, anyway. Command sent in a 3-man team, me, Lynn, and Sergeant Rafi. I was the lead for internal search. Lynn handled comms and tagging. Rafi was watching structural points and keeping track of time. We had 20 minutes max inside before the next aftershock window. I made it 15. We'd found 3 bodies already. 1 DOA near the emergency exit, 2 buried under the edge of a concrete beam. No survivors, no noise, until I heard it. A thump. Dull, weak, repeating, like someone hitting a pipe. Rafi, that's a signal, I'd said, down in the old service stairwell. He didn't argue. We trained not to. The stairwell shaft was barely holding together, a zigzagging split in the building's gut. Lynn stayed on higher ground, watching the upper beam integrity while I dropped in with a line, light, and locator ping. 8 meters down, my boots hit concrete dust. Dark. Air was thick, like breathing through cotton. Rebar stuck out like spider legs in every direction. I heard the thump again, faster now. Then a weak, rattling voice. Here, down here, please. I moved fast. Faster than I should have. I should have waited for the second line, should have called the report in. But the moment I took that step deeper, it felt like the ground turned to water. A groan echoed from above, deep, metallic, ancient. And then the stairwell shaft collapsed. Not a fall. A fold. Like the building folded itself shut. I remember the noise. Not the crash, the silence right after. The kind where your ears scream for sound, but all you get is your own pulse, thudding behind your eyes. But thudding behind your eyes. I tried to radio out. Nothing. Yelled. Nothing. My legs were twisted under something. I couldn't see what. Just dead weight pinning me by the shin. Dark. Dust everywhere. I bit down on the panic. Hit my shoulder light. It blinked on. Barely. A long hallway stretched ahead, blocked halfway by rubble. My boots were soaked. I thought it was water until I saw the color. Blood. I don't know if it was mine. I did what I was trained to do. Check limbs. Check breathing. Check gear. I had a fractured leg. Bad swelling already. My right glove was torn. 2 fingers bleeding, skin peeled. I could move my upper body. My pack was pinned beneath me, but my belt gear was intact. Light knife, compact med kit, small water pouch. I had no idea where Lynn or Rafi were. No idea if the building above me still existed. No comms. No noise. Just a maze of pitch-black debris and broken angles of concrete pressing down like a giant's coffin. And I wasn't alone. I heard the voice again, closer this time. Help, help me. It wasn't a hallucination. I swear it wasn't. The light on my shoulder flickered again. 1 bar, maybe 30 minutes max. I forced myself to breathe slow. Panic eats oxygen. I'd taught that in basic training. If your heart's racing, you're wasting air. Funny how hard that is to follow when you're pinned in the dark, bleeding, with someone crying a few meters away. I reached for my belt, thumbed the emergency locator. Dead. The quake must have fried the signal unit. Even if it wasn't, 6 floors of collapsed concrete meant it wouldn't reach the surface. My mind ran through protocol. Step 1, assess environment. Step 2, free yourself. Step 3, prioritize survivability. I braced both hands on the slab, pinning my leg, and pushed. Nothing. Solid. Like it was a piece of the earth itself. I tried shifting sideways. The pain that tore through my leg made me see stars. I bit down on a scream and let my head drop against the concrete. This wasn't how I was supposed to go. I wasn't some civilian waiting for a miracle. I was rescue. I was supposed to know what to do. Another voice. The same one. Weak. Is anyone, please? I twisted my body, dragging my torso far enough to see around a chunk of wall. My shoulder light barely lit the space ahead, a narrow passage between crumbled slabs, almost like a man-sized rat tunnel. The voice came from that direction. I took a deep breath and started working my leg free. Not lifting, that was impossible, but sliding, grinding, letting skin tear if it meant movement. 10 minutes of agony. I could feel blood soaking my pants. But finally, I felt something shift. Then, release. I rolled onto my side, gasping. Legs not broken, crushed maybe, swollen like hell, but I could move it. That was something. I wrapped the leg with gauze, not because it helped, but because I needed to do something. Action meant focus. Focus meant survival. I turned back to the tunnel. "Hey!" I shouted. "SAR operator, if you can hear me, make a noise." Nothing. I clicked my light higher and started crawling. The tunnel wasn't a tunnel. It was a jagged line between destruction. Floors pancaked above and below, just enough space for one man to drag himself through. I moved on elbows, dragging my busted leg behind like a sack of meat. Every inch forward kicked up a cloud of dust. Breathing, it made my throat raw. I passed shattered desk legs, a child's shoe, part of a cracked bathroom sink. Every now and then I stopped and called out. Sometimes I thought I heard movement ahead. Other times, I wasn't sure. It took me maybe 15 minutes to clear the passage. I came into a slightly wider cavity, maybe an old office crushed down to 4 feet high. My light bounced off broken glass and rebar curled like veins through the ceiling, and there to the left was a hand, motionless, gray, covered in dust. "Hey!" I called, crawling forward. "Can you hear me? SAR!" "You're not alone." No response. I got closer, reached out, touched the wrist. Cold, stiff, dead, not recent. A woman, maybe mid-30s. Her torso was crushed flat under a collapsed beam, face turned sideways like she'd been looking at the exit that never came. I whispered, "I'm sorry," even though I didn't know why. Then I moved on. I crawled deeper into the dark, legs screaming every time it bumped something. Then I heard it again. A faint metallic clang. Not a voice, not an animal. Deliberate, like someone tapping steel with something heavy. I froze, waited. 2 taps, then 3, then silence. I knew what that was. Morse, but too soft to make out. I scrambled forward, pain gone, mind locked on the only thing that mattered now. Someone else is alive down here. Another 10 meters. I found the source. A man. Late 40s. Curled under an office desk, wedged into the debris like a coffin lid. He was using his boot to tap a length of pipe bolted into the ground. When he saw my light, his eyes lit up with disbelief. His mouth opened, cracked lips trembling. "You're real?" I nodded. "I'm SAR," I said. "You're not alone." He cried, not loudly, just a quiet, shaking release, like a balloon deflating in slow motion. I crawled to him, checked his vitals. He had a dislocated shoulder and a few cracked ribs, but he could move. We didn't talk much. There wasn't time. The structure above us groaned again, a metal strain, somewhere up the tunnel, that sound that tells you the building's still shifting. I looked at him and said, "We need to move." He nodded. "Name's Firdaus." "Alex," I said. "Stay behind me, and if I stop, you push me forward, no matter what." We moved together, into the dark, toward whatever path still existed beneath what used to be a city. The tunnel narrowed again. It wasn't even a tunnel, just a crawl space between 2 sections of the office that hadn't completely collapsed. The slab above us creaked with every movement. Fiberglass insulation hung like dead moss from cracked seams. One wrong move and it all come down. I led the way, dragging my bad leg, keeping the light low. Firdaus followed inches behind. I could hear his breathing, shallow, wet, internal bruising. He was trying not to groan. We didn't speak. Every sound we made felt amplified in that coffin-like corridor. Every elbow drag, every exhale, every time one of us brushed against a shard of glass or kicked rubble, it all echoed too far. And in between those sounds, I heard something else. Not voices. Not whispers, just breathing. Not mine. Not his. Coming from up ahead. Too steady to be an echo, too faint to be mechanical, just slow, calm breathing, like someone waiting. I stopped moving. Firdaus bumped into my foot. "What is it?" he whispered, voice barely more than air. I held up a hand, waited, listened. Silence. I pushed forward again. My light flickered as we entered a collapsed break room. Molded plastic chairs were crushed flat. A vending machine was jammed sideways into a wall like it had been thrown there. Firdaus crawled beside me now, rubbing his shoulder. "Where the hell are we?" "6 floors down," I muttered. Maybe deeper now. I don't even know which way's north anymore. His face tightened. How long has it been? I checked my watch. Cracked screen. Battery blinking low. Over 3 hours. His eyes went wide. They should have... They won't find us. I said it before I could stop myself. Not in time. That locator was our lifeline, and it's gone. He looked at me like I'd just told him he was dead. Maybe I had. We took stock. He had a small canteen, half full. No food, one pen light, no radio. I still had part of a trauma pack, but no signal flares. One compression bandage. My light was starting to dim again. I switched to economy mode, narrowing the beam. We moved again, over shattered floor tiles, through what used to be a daycare office, toy blocks frozen mid-spill across a collapsed bookshelf. I tried not to look too long at the wall where small red handprints were dried into the dust. Then ahead, in the beam of my light, a drop. Vertical shaft. Maybe an elevator that had collapsed halfway. A steel cable hung loose into darkness. I knelt at the edge. The air was colder here, damp. And again, that breathing, just for a second. From somewhere below, then gone. I looked back. Firdaus shook his head. I didn't hear anything. I didn't argue. Not because I believed it was nothing, but because I didn't trust my own senses anymore. We had no other path forward. The crawl spaces above were blocked. The only route was down. I anchored the remaining line around a twisted railing post, pulled to test it. Held. 20 feet drop, maybe, I muttered. Should be manageable. I went first. Halfway down, the beam of my light caught something on the wall. Letters. Scratched into concrete. Day 2. Stay away from the lower floors. My grip tightened. I almost lost my hold. I didn't tell Firdaus. We reached the bottom, and it was dead quiet. Too quiet. Like something was waiting for us to make the next sound. So I didn't. I held my breath, listened. No breathing now, no echo. Just the soft buzz of my nearly dead flashlight. We were standing in what looked like a sub-basement corridor. Part of the maintenance level, water-stained tiles, exposed piping along the ceiling. Some doors were jammed shut. One was slightly open. I peered in and stopped cold. There were footprints in the dust. Fresh, leading into that room, but not out. I didn't move for a long time, just stared at the prints. 2 sets, one small, maybe a woman's boot. The other heavy, wide tread. SAR issue. Could have been Rafi or Lynn, but the spacing was wrong. Whoever it was, they weren't walking. They were staggering, dragging. One print was deep, the other smeared. Firdaus stepped up beside me. Someone made it down here? I nodded, slowly. Looks like it. I swung the light into the room. It was a break area, or used to be. Small square table flipped on its side, cabinet doors open, a microwave hanging from a broken bracket. Dust everywhere, except for a clear trail across the tiles. And near the back wall, something glinting. I stepped inside. My boots followed the tracks. The air felt tighter here. The deeper we went, the more the air pressed into your chest like it didn't want you breathing. Firdaus stayed near the door. I crouched by the glint. A radio. Standard issue SAR handheld. I picked it up. Flipped the switch. Nothing. Dead. Water damaged. But it was mine. My unit number was etched into the side. This was Lynn's, I said out loud, throat dry. She'd taken it before I dropped down into the stairwell, which meant she'd made it this far. I looked up. Across the wall near the corner, someone had scratched a word into the drywall with something sharp. Stay. All caps. Deep. A warning or a command. Firdaus crouched beside me. They could still be alive, he said. If they made it down here, maybe they found a safe pocket. I didn't answer. I was looking at something just past the table. A bag. Half-zipped. Our med kit. Supplies torn open, bandages tossed, water pack emptied and shredded, and under that, barely visible, a SAR helmet. It was cracked down the center. The strap snapped. Blood crusted along the edge. Let's move, I said, suddenly standing. We don't stay here. Firdaus hesitated. But if they didn't. My voice came out too sharp. I softened it. This place isn't stable, and we need to get higher. The deeper we go, the worse our odds. He nodded, eyes flicking back to the helmet. You think that's your friend? I looked at the blood. I think they didn't die right away. We crawled back into the corridor. My leg was throbbing now, the wrap soaked through, warm and wet. My light dipped again, just a faint cone of yellow now. I checked the backup battery, one left. We took the corridor north, or what we thought was north. That's the thing about being buried under a building. There's no sun, no sky. You go by instinct, layout, and desperation. The hall forked ahead, left, toward storage rooms, maybe. Right, toward old elevator access. I took a step right. That's when I heard it. Not ahead, not behind, but through the radio on my hip. A sound, crackling, static. Then, hello? A voice, weak, faint, female. I froze. Firdaus spun toward me. Was that? I yanked the radio up. It wasn't even turned on. Battery compartment was gone. No way it could have received anything. And yet, I heard it. Clear as day. Hello, anyone? My thumb hovered over the dead transmit button. Then, please, I'm stuck. I can't move. I stared at the empty device. No lights, no signal, just that voice. It faded, crackled, gone. Firdaus looked pale. Did you respond? I shook my head slowly. There's no power, it's not real. But it sounded like, I know. I clipped the dead radio back to my belt. My hand trembled. I clenched it into a fist. I was trained in logic, in stress response. I knew the human brain does things under trauma, memory bleed, auditory mirages, sound substitution. But that wasn't just a noise. That was a voice. And it said exactly what someone might say if they were alive. Alone, calling for me. We chose the left path instead. Not because I thought it was safer, but because I didn't trust myself anymore. And I couldn't afford to follow an echo of my own guilt. The hallway narrowed. Low ceiling. Damp air. We moved in a crouch now, my bad leg nearly useless. I was dragging it more than walking. Firdaus kept glancing at me like he wanted to offer help, but knew better than to touch me without asking. That kind of silent respect, it's rare, especially down here. We passed collapsed ductwork, old electrical panels torn open by the quake. Some wires still sparked dimly. It made the shadows look alive. Then we came to another doorway. Heavy metal twisted at the hinge. I pushed it with my shoulder. It scraped open just enough for us to slip through. The air changed instantly. Colder. Still. Like the room hadn't breathed in days. It was a storage sublevel, rows of shelves knocked over, crates broken, office records and shattered plastic bins scattered across the floor. We moved in silence, lights scanning. That's when I saw it. A rescue tag, hanging off a rusted steel pipe above the shelf line. Bright orange, plastic, standard issue. I reached up, pulled it down, flipped it over. My name, Alex Carter. Team, Delta 5. Mission, Site Sweep B. Time logged, today. Status, search in progress. I stared at it for a long time. Firdaus stepped closer. That's yours? Yeah. You logged it this morning? I shook my head. We never got this far. He looked around slowly, then back at the tag. You're saying someone else tagged it for you? I didn't answer. We pushed farther in. Every few steps, I kept glancing at the tag in my hand. I could feel it pressing into my palm. Real. Plastic edges. Still clean. That meant someone, maybe Lynn, maybe Rafi, made it here after I went down. Still trying to keep track of the sweep, following protocol, even while buried, or someone found it and hung it there. We cleared the room. I found a cracked storage bin and used the lid as a splint for my leg. Firdaus helped tear some cord to tie it in place. Pain shot through me like lightning every time I moved, but the support helped. I could limp now, barely. That's when we heard movement, not breathing, not wind, movement. Concrete shifting, light tapping, somewhere behind us. Firdaus grabbed my arm. My light flicked toward the noise. A long corridor, cracked tiles, partial cave-in at the far end. Empty, dead silent. Then, just before we turned away, a shadow moved across the floor. Firdaus whispered, "There's someone there." I raised my hand. "Hello?" I called out, voice sharp. "Search and rescue. Identify yourself." Nothing. We waited. 5 seconds. 10. Nothing. I stepped forward. Every part of me screamed not to, but we couldn't leave it. Not if it was someone alive. The corridor was lined with broken panels and a collapsed ceiling grid. My light danced across torn insulation and slanted wall beams. Firdaus followed behind, slower now. We reached the bend. Nothing there. Just a dead-end hallway, collapsed at the middle. Rubble 5 feet high, no way through. And yet, footprints. Fresh, one set. Mud and dust. Crisscrossed from side to side, someone pacing. I stepped closer and saw something else. Handwriting on the wall, drawn in soot, finger traced. "You're too late." Firdaus stepped up beside me. "What does that mean?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know who it was meant for, me or the person who left it. We doubled back. Time was running out. My watch was dead now. My flashlight too. Battery blinked red, then cut out. I switched to Firdaus's pen light. It barely lit the floor. We needed to move. Fast. Up and out. if there wasn't an out. We found an old service access tunnel, angled upward, maybe leading back to an upper sublevel or stair core. The tunnel was half collapsed, wet, narrow, just wide enough to squeeze through. No choice. I went first, crawling again. Damp grit under my palms, the tunnel sloped steeply. My leg dragged with every motion. Behind me, Firdaus grunted. You okay? I was about to answer, then froze. Ahead. Carved into the side of the tunnel wall, small, scratched letters barely visible in the beam of the penlight. Alex Carter, don't follow. My full name, spelled correctly. I stared at it until the penlight dimmed to a whisper. Firdaus didn't speak, he just waited. I exhaled, swallowed hard, and kept crawling. Before we dive back in, let me know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story reaches. If the tension's got you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dive survival horror tales and don't miss a single heart-pounding moment. The crawl space narrowed to the point where my shoulders scraped both walls. Concrete dust caked every breath. My hands ached from dragging my body forward 1 inch at a time. The message was still in my head. Alex Carter, don't follow, like it had been etched into the inside of my skull. Who would have written that? Nobody I knew used my last name unless it was on an official tag or mission log. Not even Rafi. And Lynn? Lynn barely called me anything but Chief. Firdaus moved behind me without a word. He hadn't asked about the writing. Maybe he didn't see it. Maybe he just knew not to ask. I crawled another few feet, light dying by the second. Then we hit a dead end, literally. The tunnel collapsed 5 meters ahead, crushed concrete, bent piping, dirt and dust packed like cement. I slammed my fist against the wall, trapped. Again. Can we dig? Firdaus asked quietly. I pressed my hand into the rubble, dry, brittle edges of drywall and rebar. No give, but the left side, just near the base, looked softer, like the collapse had trapped air behind it. Dust spilled lightly through the cracks when I brushed it. Maybe, I said. Help me. We worked in silence. Handfuls of dirt, chunks of wall, rebar bent back with pieces of cracked PVC. No tools, just fingers. Minutes passed, maybe more. My hands started bleeding. I didn't stop. We cleared a small opening, maybe 10 inches wide, just enough for air to move. Then we heard it, from the other side of the rubble. A sound, thud, a single impact. Muffled, weak. Then, help. Firdaus stopped cold, looked at me. I stared at the hole. It came again. Please, help. A woman's voice, broken, faint, alive. I pressed my mouth to the hole. Sar, hold on, we're coming through. No answer. I kept digging. Faster. Dirt filled my nails, my wrists burned. Firdaus tore pieces free with his bare knuckles, shaking, coughing from the dust. More space opened up. We saw light, flickering, unnatural, orange. We widened the gap. Then I pushed my head through and froze. It was a small room, maybe a server room or storage closet. Ceiling half intact, fire exit door crushed under fallen beams, some emergency lighting still flickering, and in the far corner, a woman curled against the wall, dust-covered, dried blood on her pants. Her leg was twisted, clearly broken. She wasn't moving, but her eyes were open. They locked onto mine. I pulled myself through the gap, crawled to her. Firdaus slipped in after me, breathing hard. I checked her vitals. Pulse faint. Breathing shallow. Conscious. I leaned close. You're safe. I'm Alex Carter. Search and rescue. We're going to get you out. Her lips barely moved. You came back. I frowned. What? She blinked, slow. You were here already. Firdaus looked at me. I wasn't, I said. This is the first time I've reached this level. She shook her head. No, I saw you. You came through the wall, said you'd be back. I didn't know what to say. Maybe head trauma. Maybe she was misremembering. But then she pointed to a spot behind the emergency power box. There, wedged between wires and bent conduit, was a note. Folded, torn from a rescue logbook. I pulled it free, unfolded it. Stared at the handwriting. My own. She's alive. Can't get her out alone. Returning with help. Alex Carter. Firdaus read over my shoulder. Did you write that? No, I whispered. But it was my handwriting. My shorthand, the way I always sign with just the surname. I backed away from the wall, suddenly ice cold. We worked fast. I stabilized her leg with a broken rod and gauze wrap from my pack. She was barely conscious but responsive. Name, Adira. Office staff. Been trapped since the first quake. 2.5 days. No food, no water, no light. I didn't ask who she saw. I didn't want the answer. Firdaus and I took turns helping her through the gap. It took 20 minutes to clear the tunnel wide enough. Then the three of us crawled back the way we came. One broken step, one gasp, one grunt of pain at a time. The building groaned again. Somewhere above us, a new shift. Dust poured from the cracks in the ceiling like rain. We had to move. Just before we turned the corner out of the crawl space, I looked back at the place where the note had been, and I saw something new just written in the dust. You came back. No footprints, no fingerprints, just the words. Waiting. We moved as fast as we could, which wasn't fast at all. Adira was conscious, but barely. One of her pupils was dilated. I knew what that meant. Head trauma, internal bleeding. Time was slipping away for her. Every second we stayed down here, the odds got worse. Firdaus had taken her left arm. I had her right. We carried her low, practically crawling, ducking every beam, every broken pipe. My leg was screaming. My shoulders burned from dragging my weight for hours. We were all falling apart. But above us, through the concrete and metal and dust, we felt it. The building was moving again. Microshifts. Small tremors, little pre-collapse groans, a pause between breaths before the next violent drop. We made it back to the corridor with the message on the wall. You're too late. I tried not to look at it. Firdaus did. Maybe it's just a warning, he said quietly. Yeah, I muttered. Or a fact. We moved on. The penlight was dying now. Just a soft glow. It made shadows look alive. Every hallway looked the same. Every stairwell was blocked. We kept turning back, crawling through spaces that felt tighter each time we returned. The building wasn't just falling, it was closing. We found what looked like a janitor's access tunnel, narrow but sloped upward. I remembered something from the briefing maps. The north sector had an old service crawl that connected to the loading dock. If we were lucky, it hadn't been completely buried. We didn't have another choice. We entered the tunnel. Halfway through, the sound changed. Not voices, not breathing, just a low, slow grind. Concrete against concrete, steel under pressure. Then the floor shifted. A tremor. Small. Subtle. Then a snap. Overhead. Move, I shouted. We scrambled. The tunnel buckled. A support beam gave way behind us. A wall of debris collapsing into the space we just crawled through. It sealed the tunnel, cutting off the path back, cutting off the way to Adira's room, and the message, and the note, and everything else. Gone. We didn't speak for a long time after that. We were in some kind of underground shipping corridor now, wide enough to walk in a crouch. Fire exit signs barely glowing with their last bit of charge. I felt cold sweat trickle down my back. Because that collapse wasn't just an accident, it had waited until we left that space, until the message was read, until we had the girl. Then it sealed the past shut, like it wanted to erase it. We carried Adira farther. Firdaus kept mumbling under his breath. Prayers, maybe. I couldn't hear clearly. I just focused on keeping my head down, watching each step, listening for sounds I could trust. Then, something else. A voice. Not words. Just scream. Far away, dull, muffled, but real. A man's scream. Sharp. Panicked. Then silence. Firdaus looked at me. You heard that, right? I nodded slowly. Yeah, it didn't repeat. We reached a wide area, looked like a security checkpoint. Half the wall collapsed, metal detector frame twisted, lockers overturned, dust on everything. Adira stirred. My phone. Firdaus knelt, brushed her hair back. It's okay, you're safe now. No, she whispered. My phone, it rang earlier. I saw light. It was ringing. I looked around. There, against the wall, a cracked phone, screen shattered but still barely pulsing. I crawled over, picked it up. The screen lit up just for a second. One missed call, timestamp tomorrow, caller ID, unknown number. Then it went black. Dead. I tucked the phone in my vest. No point asking her, not now. She was slipping again. We needed higher ground. We found stairs, emergency ones, reinforced concrete steel rebar, still intact, but filled with rubble, half blocked. We'd have to dig through to reach the next level. I pulled my last piece of gauze, tied it tighter around my leg. Help me clear it, I said. Firdaus nodded. We set Adira down gently against the wall. We started digging. Again. Hands. Dust. Blood. Metal. Over and over. Dig. Pull. Dig. Pull. The stairwell creaked, the groan of structural stress rising through the bones of the building like thunder. The collapse was coming again, and this time, I didn't know if we'd beat it. The first 5 minutes of digging were pure adrenaline. No words. No thoughts. Just raw, frantic motion. My hands were raw. Firdaus's nails were black with blood. The debris was packed tight, Years of dust and earthquake pressure pressing it like concrete. We worked in shifts. Clear rubble, check Adira, push forward another few feet. The stairwell above was still intact, barely. Every now and then I'd feel a subtle vibration in the steel frame. Not shaking, just pressure, like the weight of 1,000 tons shifting above our heads, and we were buried under all of it. I took a second to breathe. Just one. My head was spinning. That's when I saw it. At the base of the next landing, beyond the cracks, behind a piece of shattered drywall, something blinked. Quick, blue, then gone. I froze. Firdaus didn't notice. I crawled forward, shoved a broken tile aside, and saw it again. A single blue light, the soft pulse of a low battery LED. I reached in, pulled. A helmet. SAR issue, my model. Same scratches, same ID sticker. I turned it in my hand. The back was caved in. The battery light blinked twice more, then died. It was mine. I hadn't seen it since the stairwell collapsed. I'd assumed it was lost, but it was here. 2 floors above where I was buried, on the other side of rubble I hadn't passed through. Firdaus saw my face. "What is it?" I didn't answer. "I just held it up." He stared. "But that's—" "I know." My hands were shaking now. We kept digging. The light from his penlight was barely holding, just enough to see each other's faces. Adira had passed out again. Shallow breaths, no sound. I checked her pulse, still there, barely. The ceiling cracked. Dust rained down in a thin stream. Something high above gave a long, slow creak, the kind that doesn't stop. I turned back to the rubble. We were 2 feet from breaking through to the next stairwell. Then I saw the light again. Not from the helmet this time, from ahead, just past the hole we were digging. Another pulse. Blue, then red, then blue again. Firdaus froze beside me. "You see that?" "I see it." We dug faster. Hands bleeding, muscles failing. The wall cracked. The beam shifted. Then, open space. The stairwell, still standing. And in the center of the next landing, a beacon. SAR locator unit. Model Z3. Still transmitting. Battery pack rigged to the side, flashing coded signal every 3 seconds. I pulled myself into the space. Firdaus helped Adira through. The air was fresher here. Drier. We'd found a vertical escape path. I crawled to the beacon. Checked the serial. My unit. Still warm. It had been activated recently. And strapped to the side was a torn piece of reflective tape, labeled in pen, "Follow your own trail." I stared at it. The handwriting, same as the note from earlier, same as the tag. Mine. Firdaus, read it. "Is this a joke? Someone screwing with you?" I shook my head slowly. "It's not a joke." He looked around. "Then who left it?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because if it wasn't me, then someone was retracing my steps before I ever made them. Or I'd been here once before, and just didn't remember. I looked up the stairwell. The next floor had light leaking through the cracks. Natural light was sunlight. Weak, but real. Hope. But even as we started climbing, I kept glancing back, down the stairwell, where the light blinked and blinked and blinked, like it was watching. The stairwell moaned with every step. Steel bolts popped somewhere high above. Chunks of plaster drifted down from cracks in the walls, mixing with the grit in my mouth. I was moving on instinct now. Not strength, I'd lost that 2 hours ago, but something lower. Animal. Desperate. All I knew was that we were close. That sunlight above us wasn't a trick of the eye. It was real. I could smell it in the dust. Open air, wet earth, the faintest edge of fire-damaged wood. We were near the surface. We had to be. But the stairs ended 3 meters short of the next landing. Just stopped. A sheared-off edge, the rest of the staircase hanging in broken silence across a vertical gap. The walls above were cracked open just enough to show slits of sunlight. We were maybe 1 story from ground level, maybe less, but there was no way up. I stood there, staring at the drop between us and freedom. Firdaus sat back against the wall, panting. "We're too late," he said, like he was trying to convince himself. Adira was barely breathing. Her skin was cold. She hadn't spoken in half an hour. I dropped to my knees. We were so close. I could see the world up there, just out of reach. But there was no ladder, no rope. The handrail had snapped off. The last 3 meters might as well have been a mile. I looked around. Just rubble, steel brackets, part of a door frame. Then my eyes settled on something that hadn't been there before. A climbing hook, fixed into the wall with an anchor bolt. I crawled over, touched it. It was still warm, new, fresh, and just below it, scratched into the wall. "Don't look down." I turned to Firdaus. Someone rigged this. He looked at the hook, then the gap above. But who? I didn't answer. I was already pulling the last strap of cord from my pack, tied it to the anchor, double knot, wrapped my hands, bit down on the pain screaming through my ruined leg. Firdaus looked scared. You sure it'll hold? No, I said. But I'm not staying here. I climbed. 1 meter, then another. My boots slipped once. I swung, smashed my shoulder into the wall, kept going. My hand found the ledge, pulled, concrete cracked under my weight. Dust fell into my eyes. I rolled over the edge and lay flat on the floor above. Sunlight. It was real, cutting through a crack in the outer wall. I was on the lowest floor of the main lobby. Half of it had collapsed, but the roof was open. I could see trees in the distance, the fire line, the emergency barrier tape we'd set that morning. I was 20 steps from open air. I called down, Firdaus, tie her in, I'll pull. I anchored the cord and braced my feet. The rope went taut. Firdaus clipped her in with shaking hands, sent her up slowly. She was barely responsive, but breathing. I pulled until she cleared the ledge, rolled her beside me, checked her pulse, weak but there. Then I dropped the line back down. Firdaus followed. Halfway up, the wall shifted again. A crack split through the floor. Concrete groaned. A beam above me sagged. Move, I shouted. He hauled himself up, fell onto the floor beside me. The wall behind us collapsed inward, bricks and plaster filling the stairwell, sealing it shut forever. There was no going back down. We were inside the lobby now, or what was left of it. Sunlight streaked through the wreckage. I saw the base of the main elevator shaft, the mural above the security desk, the old emergency map half burnt on the wall. And then I saw them. Figures, 4 of them, standing beyond the far glass, outside the caution tape, wearing SAR gear. One held a thermal scope, another had a radio. I recognized the shape of one of them, Rafi. Even from this far, even with half his face obscured by dust and light, I knew the way he stood. Arms crossed, slight tilt to his stance. I shouted, "Hey!" No response. I waved both arms. "Rafi!" Nothing. They didn't move, didn't even flinch. I ran forward, pulled myself over the broken entrance frame, shouting the whole way. When I got close enough to touch the glass, they were gone. Not moved, not walked off, just gone, like a bad dream burning off under sunlight. I turned back. Firdaus was helping Adira sit up. Her head hung forward. She wasn't speaking. I dropped beside her, checked her pulse. Still there, still hanging on, but barely. We were alive, but we were not safe, not yet. And whatever had happened down there, the collapsing paths, the repeated notes, the whispers and warnings, it wasn't behind us. It had followed. We made a shelter in the half-collapsed lobby, right against the fractured north wall. It was the only place that seemed stable enough to rest. The beams above hadn't sagged yet. The sunlight touched the floor. That made it feel safer, even if it wasn't. Adira was barely responsive. We fed her water in small sips from Firdaus's canteen. Her eyes fluttered open, closed, open again. She murmured things I didn't understand. Fractured thoughts, scattered memories. None of it made sense. She keeps saying the same word, Firdaus whispered, over and over. Something like mirror or middle. I nodded but didn't answer. Because I'd stopped listening for meaning hours ago. All I cared about now was getting her out, getting all of us out. I stood up slowly and walked to the open break in the wall where the morning light filtered in. Just outside the caution tape, 20 meters ahead, was the emergency staging area. Tents, equipment boxes, a half-crushed comms tower. I could see it now, the exact spot where I'd stood with Rafi and Lynn that morning, hours before the first tremor. I knew it like I knew my own name. But the closer I looked, the more wrong it seemed. The ground was undisturbed. No boot prints, no cables, no tool crates, no footprints leading to or from the tape. Like nobody had ever been there. And then a sharp chill hit the back of my neck, like breath. But I was alone. I backed away from the wall, turned. The room behind me, Firdaus, Adira, the beams, the debris, felt off. Like I had walked into a room I'd already seen, already left. A split second of dizziness hit me hard. Then something else. A memory. Not from this day, from another. I saw the mural on the lobby wall collapsing. I saw my own body lying crushed beneath the staircase. I saw blood trickling down my temple, pooling beside a cracked rescue tag. And I heard Lynn's voice somewhere distant and echoing. He didn't make it. I staggered back. My breathing went sharp. Firdaus saw me. What's wrong? I didn't know how to explain it, but I'd seen this place before. Not in training, not in photos. I remembered dying here. I fell to one knee, gripped the floor. It felt too familiar. Every crack in the tile, every scorch mark from the generator fire, every angle of light slanting in from above, like I'd been here twice or more. Firdaus knelt beside me. You're shaking. I met his eyes. What if we never left? He frowned. What? What if this isn't the first time we've tried to escape? What if we're stuck here, looping the same collapse again and again? He stared at me like I was losing it, and maybe I was, but I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. The note in my handwriting I didn't write, the locator tag that knew where I'd be, the beacon rigged with my gear, the voice through a dead radio. And now, this feeling that I'd died here before. Adira stirred again. Her voice cracked. Carter! My head snapped toward her. She hadn't used my name before, not once. I crawled to her side. What did you say? Her eyes barely opened. You have to. Finish it this time. I felt the blood drain from my face. What do you mean? She didn't answer. Her head rolled to the side, passed out. Firdaus sat back, breathing heavy. I don't like this. I didn't either. I stood again, looked toward the breach in the wall. The light outside had changed. Warmer. Later in the day. But that wasn't possible. We'd been in the lobby for 20 minutes. Maybe less. Yet the sun had moved. I checked my watch. Still dead. Firdaus's? Also blank. No time, no compass, no anchor, just memory. And even that was slipping. There was a sound behind us, a soft shuffle. I turned, and for a single breathless moment, I saw myself standing on the stairs, looking down at me. Same helmet, same torn vest, same blood-stained bandage on the leg. He didn't speak. He just pointed to Adira, then to the breach in the wall. Then he was gone. Firdaus backed away. Did you see? I saw it. We didn't speak again. We just knew. It was time to move. I picked Adira up. Firdaus helped support her weight. We stepped through the breach, into the sunlight, into whatever came next. They found us 40 minutes later, not at the staging zone, not near the triage site. We were found half a kilometer from the building, wandering the edge of a firebreak, half blind with dust and dehydration. Firdaus was carrying Adira. I was dragging my right leg, bleeding again, sunburned, disoriented, but alive. That's what the first responder kept saying, over and over. You're alive. You're okay. You're safe now. Like, if he repeated it enough, it'd make it real. The three of us were taken in together. IV bags. Oxygen. Immediate triage. They ran CT scans on all of us. Adira needed emergency surgery for internal bleeding and a compound fracture. Firdaus had a partially collapsed lung. I had stress fractures and acute dehydration, but I refused to stay sedated because I had questions, and I wasn't getting answers. I asked to see the incident report. No record of my beacon being activated underground. No SAR logbook entries with my handwriting. No rescue tag labeled Alex Carter found on site. They told me the locator I was carrying hadn't transmitted a signal since the morning before the first quake. So I asked who was working the north sector. They gave me the names. Lynn hadn't made it. Crushed during the initial collapse. Rafi was in surgery, unresponsive. But that's not what hit me hardest. What hit me was this. The building we crawled out of had already been cleared 2 days before, declared unstable, no life signs, no rescue teams were assigned after the second aftershock. Nobody was supposed to be there. They checked my GPS. It had been offline since the morning of the collapse, but one of the data analysts showed me something strange. For a brief window, exactly 17 minutes long, my unit ID pinged twice from 2 locations, one from the rubble and one from the breach at the same time. I asked where they found us. The responder paused, said, "You were standing at the fire line, just beyond the yellow tape, like you were waiting." Waiting for what? He didn't answer. I went back to the site a week later, alone. The building was gone by then, leveled by demolition, reduced to raw earth and gravel. But I remembered exactly where the lobby had been. I walked to that spot. There, buried beneath the soil, was something sticking out of the dirt. Plastic. Orange. A rescue tag. I picked it up, turned it over. My name, Alex Carter. Date today. And on the back in my handwriting, "You got out this time." I haven't gone underground again, not since then. Sometimes I still hear it, the shift of concrete, The voice through static, that moment when the light blinks before everything collapses again. Sometimes I wonder if we escaped at all, or if we're still buried somewhere under it all, just remembering what it would have felt like if we got out. Before you go, if you felt the tension, if you made it through the collapse with us, hit that like button to help more people find the story. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Stay safe out there.